Welcome to the Future Is Now Digest, where we bring you the latest updates on the ever-growing turbulent situation on planet Earth, where we try to dissect the effects of this global pandemic on the many industries that we're currently a part of, disruptive space in general, blockchain, CBD, AI, iGaming. This is what we cover. And today, we'll bring you the latest out of the United States, which has surpassed China in the total of COVID-19 cases. Then, of course, we have Britain with pretty disturbing information. Not only Prince Charles contracted COVID-19, but also Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the first active big leader of a big world power, has tested positive for coronavirus. And what's more frightening here is that the Queen of England has interacted with Mr. Johnson, I guess during this incubation period or whatnot. So now the world awaits the test results of the Queen of England. We are bringing you live out of Oxford, England, our great friend, a blockchain entrepreneur and investor, also an iGaming entrepreneur and a CEO of an iGaming company. David Wainwright is with us today. David, how are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, Miguel. It's great to catch up with you. Who would have thought? 6 months ago, I think we were, maybe less, but 3 months ago in Malta, I was talking about Bitcoin, the banks, the collapse, digital currency. Mine was a 5-year vision. It's turning out to be like a 5-month vision. Who would have thought? When we were chatting in Malta, having a few drinks, exactly 6 months later, we're talking about global leaders coming down with the pandemic, global leaders catching viruses, global banks on the verge of collapse. Every day we're looking at these logarithmic graphs. People are predicting 500,000. When are we going to hit 1 million? When are we going to hit 10 million? When are we going to hit 100 million? Scary, scary times. I decided to come to Oxford, to come to my farm. I opened up my well. I've ordered 1 ton of seed potatoes. I'm going to become self-sufficient. 12 months. I predict 12 months.
1 ton.
A lockdown. 12 months lockdown. I don't think it's going to be kind of so bad. The food chain should be going, but I don't know if you saw India's in lockdown. Africa's heading into lockdown. What's going to happen? All these farmers are in lockdown. We're going to have a huge disruption to the food chain. Maybe 3 months, 6 months. Can the world cope with this? The price of oil has collapsed. Airlines have collapsed. Can the world really cope with this kind of shutdown? There's a global shutdown.
Now, before we get to the Queen of England situation, as you are sort of involved with the Queen of England, let's just put it that way, and we'll reveal that in a few. But my first question would be, how valid is this sort of action, David? I mean, really, how valid is it to lock down a world of 8 billion people because we have around 500,000 cases that have been expanding and growing over since January, right? Over the last 4 months. Is this really and again, out of that whole percentage, we only have about depending on how you look at it, from 10 to 20% that have been actually fatal and lethal cases. Is this really the right action to prevent the young adults from running the business, running the food chains, running the economy in some way or shape or form? While what we could have done, I think, is isolated the elderly, quarantined the elderly, and allowed those who have a proven record of going through this without major side effects, continuing to live and work.
I think it was a very tough call for global leaders. They're probably being advised on one side by the kind of medical, the scientific, this is going to hit 80% of the population, and then they were being advised on the other side by the economists to say, if we do a shutdown, the economic destruction to social lives, jobs, poverty is probably far greater than the virus. So I think it was a very tough call. Trump and Johnson took a very similar sort of tactic as a kind of a wait and see, not going through an immediate lockdown. And then I think there was huge public pressure. The public, the UK, I kind of see everyone was saying we need to go into lockdown, we're copying Italy, etc., etc. In my personal view on it, is that probably 10 times, if not 100 times, maybe 1,000 times, the people that have been tested are actually, have the virus. So the actual fatality rate is quite low, because the fatality rate you read about on the news and the headlines is those that are tested. And there isn't any statistics of what percentage of the public with no symptoms that gets tested is positive. If for some reason there's been no kind of random testing, if I was in charge, that we've all got our personal, views on how we could run the country better than Trump or Johnson. If I was in charge, I would do random testing, 1,000 cases, 10,000. You would then know what percentage of the population is positive. Because it doesn't make sense that Johnson. It just doesn't make sense that Johnson is positive, Prince Charles is positive, Tom Hanks is positive. These kind of global elites are all coming positive. It's only because they're being tested. So to me, it just doesn't make sense that so many people, so many kind of famous, global leaders. There's not just the UK. I'm sure, give it another week, another 2 weeks, you can see all around the world. Iran had a big case of their ministers being tested positive. So it's a tough call. Do you test everybody, which is going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars, or do you use the hundreds of millions of dollars to treat people rather than test people? So my theory is that kind of 80% of the population are going to get this virus, but a very small percentage will actually be critical and fatal. And obviously for that percentage that is critical and fatal, it's devastating. But the global shutdown is probably going to have a greater effect than the kind of, the actual virus itself. It's a very tough call. It's a very, very tough call. I wouldn't want to be Trump or Boris Johnson right now.
Well, The Economist, did you see the cover on The Economist? I believe it was today or yesterday. Everything's under control, with a huge hand holding a person in a trench coat, looking like a business suit, on a leash. That person is wearing a mask, and he's holding a dog on a smaller leash, and a small dog in front of him, also wearing a mask. And it's titled, "Everything's Under Control, Big Government, Liberty, and the Virus." And the question is, what's really under control here? That's the question that I have after looking at this cover. Has the big government truly gotten this situation under control? I mean, we can of course ask the owner of The Economist. Do you know who owns The Economist?
Yeah, the owner of the Daily Telegraph. The owner of the Daily Telegraph said it was a good thing to wipe out the kind of unneeded in society. But I don't believe in that. I don't believe in this conspiracy theory, because the people that are kind of in control of the banks, in control of the governments, are kind of 60 plus. They're kind of wiping themselves out. It's a mystery, isn't it? It's a mystery. Where did this virus come from? Did it come from a lab? Did it come from a mistake? Did it come from a bat? Where did it come from? And if we find out, I think we have an even bigger problem. If Trump discovers China created this virus, the world has an even bigger problem. What do we actually do about it? I don't know if you kind of catch the news in the UK that there's kind of 3 warships off the north east of England, kind of circling around. 3 Russian warships. They're kind of in the midst of this crisis. Russia sends over some warships to have a look. Just to kind of tease us a little bit.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's I completely agree with you that it's so speculative at this point that, China was working on something like this in Wuhan, where they have that, chemical lab and whatnot, and accidentally it slipped. And then China.
But also, if you wanted to release the virus into the world, you would pick a town with a lab, wouldn't you? If you were an American spy or a Russian spy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that theory fits in as well. Exactly.
It's a mystery. It's a total mystery.
We had Iran, which is of course a geopolitical enemy of the United States, and that's an obvious. But then we have Italy for some reason, right? So, and there is also some information going out there that those 3 strains in those particular places, China, Iran, Italy, were much stronger than the strains that are now circulating in Europe and the United States. So that's also something to consider. But what's your thought? Now, I know you're a critical thinker. This is not the first interview I've done with you. I enjoy our talks always. What have you assessed from digesting all of these news that have been coming out over the last several months about this? What's your assessment of this situation?
Yeah, my assessment is it's kind of a seismic tsunami that's coming. Yeah, you think about the airlines, the cruise ships, the car makers, the banks, the house builders. It's just seismic. They won't be able to cope. The bars, the musicians, the kind of festivals, the event holders, they just won't be able to cope with a 12-month shutdown. And many people, I think, won't want to leave their community. They'll be frightened of flying, frightened of going to different countries. So it's kind of, the end of globalization and the rise of micro communities. We'll have these micro communities connected to each other. They'll be servicing each other. There'll be kind of a return, like maybe 100 years to how life lived 100 years ago. But we have the internet connecting us together. But I don't think that we'll be shipping food from China to England, from India to the United States. The communities will want to return to micro self-sufficient communities. And there's a huge, huge opportunity to kind of take on. People will be at home for a long time, 12 months, I think. They want entertainment. They're going to want products. Can these big manufacturing, can they really start up again? Can they really go into the factories and switch them on? I don't think so. I think it's going to be very difficult for these huge corporations. McDonald's, they're finished. Coca-Cola, these guys are in for a very, very tough time. And the general public is very anti these corporations. People are kind of looking at themselves and say, what really matters in life?
Well, that kind of defeats the globalist theory. This is a globalist conspiracy to, do the golden trillion, kill off a bunch of people and lower the population, because in the process they're destroying the established, financial moguls of the world, like McDonald's, as you mentioned, right, and other factories as well.
It's a mystery, isn't it? It's a total mystery. Yeah, I do genuinely think it was man-made. I do think this virus was man-made, but I don't think whoever created it, meant it to be such a global pandemic. They wanted to test it, try it out, and it got out of control. But I do think it was man-made.
In this case, what do you think as far as the outcome that we're going to see? You mentioned products, you mentioned new opportunities emerging. Let's talk about our sector, disruptive and iGaming in particular, because I know that's your main area of focus. And I mean, if I see no problem with people, spending their money the way they want to in these times of restriction of travel and whatnot, and perhaps do a little bit of iGaming. So do you feel that the iGaming industry is using this, or not really using it, just benefiting from the fact that there are more people sort of being able to spend time in front of their computers and maybe bet some of their money and win?
I think honestly the iGaming industry is in shock. It's in total shock. There's no sporting events. Kind of sports betting kind of drove the industry. There's no sports betting events, and there probably won't be for 6 months or 12 months. Everybody's at home. All these offices are closed down. Everybody is at home. Of course, there's kind of speculation that people are at home, they've got money to spend, they will spend it, etc., etc. But it's only sustainable if they've got ongoing income, if they have disposable income, for 6 months or 12 months. I think the bigger picture is kind of the mass unemployment that we're going to see, and I think every industry is in for a tough time. There might be spikes now. People are at home, they've got a bit of money, they're looking for entertainment, there'll be a spike. But if you have 50% of the world's population unemployed, it's just not sustainable. I think we're in for a very different world to what we've been in the last 6 months, the last 12 months, the last 100 years. It's the most seismic shift I've seen in my lifetime. I think you'll agree. Nobody thought we'd be all stuck in our homes. We can't leave our homes globally. Right. Is there any country in the world people are leaving their homes?
So the question is, can we adapt, especially in our industry of, our disruptive industry space, can we adapt to this? Can we start creating everything that we've been creating, but do it through distances, do it online, do it virtually, have the staff, move our operations online, etc. Is this something that you see that you're adapting to personally as an entrepreneur in blockchain and iGaming? How are you adapting to this?
I think you have to. If you don't adapt, you will die. That you have to adapt. You have to assume your workforce is going to be at home. Your servers are kind of you'll never better visit them ever again, which is okay if you're using Amazon. We just have to hope and pray that Amazon servers keep going. We have to hope that the internet keeps going. I think the winners will be like distance learning. We've got all these kids around the world. There's a guy in the UK, Joe Wicks, I don't know if you know about him, but like 1 million kids are watching him every day. He came from nowhere, not quite from nowhere, but suddenly he's a global celebrity. He's online. He's operating out of his living room. He's got very few expenses, and he's got more viewers than the BBC, Sky, ITV, CNN put together. And that's the kind of seismic shift, the seismic opportunities. If you can kind of realize that people are home, they want content, they want entertainment, they want to do things. We're not going to be buying clothes and shoes and things like that because we're all at home. But we'll have disposable income. There's always going to be an opportunity. And as an entrepreneur, you think, what is the kind of the pivot that kind of an established company in this space just cannot see. But as an entrepreneur, you can very quickly get online, get your product out there, low cost base. So for sure, we're in for a kind of, in some ways, I think it's quite refreshing that we're going through this global change. It's just very sad, the kind of fatalities that we're seeing at the same time. The earth is slowing down, people are slowing down, people are kind of respecting their community, people are kind to each other.
And that's the positive and the negative that's coming out of this. As we recently spoke with Brock Pierce, he believes this is a global awakening and a cleansing of the earth, which we do see proof of. Dolphins in Venice, clear skies over China, and whatnot. It just seems like, and it's really happening quickly. It's amazing how quickly the earth can cleanse itself once everything stops operating. So there is some positive out of this, and it seems that we are going through a shift of realizing that this globalism, it's not really going to work anymore, especially in the current reality of this pandemic. People are not going to want to travel, like you mentioned, anytime soon, even after this officially would be put to rest. God willing.
So we're becoming far more efficient, working from home. We're going to question: is there a need to travel in the future? We all like.
This is all kind of going into this whole futuristic society that Hollywood has been brainwashing us with for the last 30 years, where we plug ourselves into these digital systems via AI cables, and we live out in our avatars in this virtual world, while this is all kind of dangerous territory not to be stepped outside. And that's kind of scary. And again, it's amazing how much lessons should be taken out of this, I think, where people need to realize that a lot of these things that we've been brainwashed with through Hollywood, through big media, through government-controlled televisions, a lot of it we're manifesting by simply dwelling and thinking about it. There was a training exercise in October 2019 in New York, held by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Johns Hopkins University, which is the main authoritative figure on the coronavirus right now, as far as new cases and whatnot. And it was a part of the World Economic Forum, an event, a gala dinner with beautiful chandeliers and people from different countries, officials, sort of acting out what they would do in case of a global pandemic caused by, guess what, the novel coronavirus. I'm going to put up the link right now for our audiences to look at. This is quite interesting. This sort of scenario that's been happening now is playing out, or what was essentially rehearsed a few months ago.
I always did think that one of these viruses would go global. We had SARS, we had Ebola, we had bird flu. I always thought one of these one of these kind of viruses would turn into a sort of pandemic global. I just didn't think it would happen so quickly, so viciously, so fast. And we're all in the blockchain space. We all believe kind of this new world order, peer-to-peer banking, but I think we all got frightened when it actually happened. We all said it was going to happen.
Nobody saw SARS or Ebola or any one of those have that sort of an effect on
That's right. They had
world.
No effect in the UK. They had no effect whatsoever. It was just an item on the news. At the end
People died. People died too, but SARS had more deaths than we have now.
But it didn't go global. Did it? That's what's unique about this event. It's gone global very quickly. We're up to like 500,000. You probably correct me. We're now 600,000. Every 2 or 3 days, it's doubling. We're looking at these logarithmic graphs. So in 3 days, we're probably at 1 million. And then in a week's time, that's what's kind of scary.
I think now with this global lockdown, I think these numbers are going to substantially drop as far as the spread, because, let's face it, we're just not communicating as much as we were in the real world anymore, and that's got to do something. David, to finish this off, we have a little bit of time left. Please tell us, what are you working on right now? How are you using the time to benefit your business, and how are you doing it? And perhaps your wish to the people out there.
So, right now I'm working on entertainment, home-based entertainment, and education. I think there's going to be, circa 1 billion kids at home. They need educated. We need to kind of stream, do Zoom classes, home education, home tutoring, that type of thing. Entertainment. Of course, iGaming is great entertainment. There's going to be very small studios popping up, offering, community-based, chat-based, connecting people together. iGaming has always done that kind of very well in education. The people are out there. I just think kind of hang in there. It's kind of, it's very scary. People don't know the unknown, but, everybody at home, you're very unlikely to kind of catch it. There's this global lockdown, and I don't think the critical death rate is anywhere near the percentage that people are predicting. I think that many, many people will catch this virus, but we've overestimated grossly the kind of mortality rate.
Well, let's hope that is so. David Wainwright, thank you so much.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you for being with us. I'm sure we'll see you on the next digest up in the future. We've launched this thing and it's been picking up. We're going to continue informing and enlightening those that care, those that want to be a part of this global awakening. The future is now. The future is what you make of it. Stay tuned to the future. I'm Miguel Francis Santiago.